Pepperoni! God, I'd love a pepperoni pizza with Bavarian olives right now. I'm starving.
Party! Pizza party! Party! Pizza party!
Hey, look here, there's a brand new game, Pizza Party. That's the name. You make a pizza, as you can see, with onions, mushrooms, or pepperoni.
Pepperoni!
You can lose if you have to switch, so you better be sharp, you better be slick.
Party! Pizza party! Come on! Party! Pizza party!
This is the captain of the Enterprise fleet. Ship.
Podcasting, the final frontier. These are the ridiculous introductions I am forced to read at gunpoint, or should I say phaser point.
Ship.
Welcome to Ship, yet another in the long line of tedious Star Trek podcasts. This show is hosted by David Lawler and David B. Anderson. The two Davids will take you on a journey through time and space every 3 or 4 weeks, boldly podcasting where no podcast has gone before. Seriously? This is what you're making me read? Take it away, boys.
It's astounding. Time is fleeting. Madness takes its toll. But listen closely.
Not for very much longer.
I've got to keep control. I remember doing the time war, drinking those moments when the blackness would hit me and the void would be calling. Let's do the time war again. Let's do the time war again.
Welcome to the season finale of Ship to Ship, a Star Trek podcast. Tonight, we're finishing up our season-long story arc. Pay attention, Star Trek Picard. This is how you produce a series. The subject is time travel. Did you know they have miniature cows in Texas?
What are we doing?
We're doing Cause and Effect Season 5. That was a great read.
I could have sworn we did that already.
No. We never did this before, but I'm sensing that we might have talked about it. I'm not really sure. So what happens basically in this episode? We start off right away with the Enterprise exploding. First we're shaking the camera. Jonathan Frakes directs the episode, right? So we're shaking the camera, and it's like casualty reports are coming in from all over the ship. Crushers on the bridge for some reason. All hands to emergency escape pods. And then the Enterprise is swept up and thrown into this area of space, and there's explosions happening, and then there's fire on the bridge, and Picard is screaming, "All hands abandon ship! Repeat, all hands abandon ship!"
And then it blows up, and you see, I think you said, it's an AMT model.
It's a very cheap. They tried to act as though they spent money on this, but
because you can see the little plastic bits of it's hollow, it just blows up, and you can see pieces. Now, you want to save money, that's what you do.
What if you want to if all you're trying to do is blow up a ship? So we're not gonna latch on to the ship in the shot. All we do is we see a vague shape. I mean, they may have painted it. Maybe they definitely glued it together. Possibly they had a poor production assistant gluing together AMT models, and then maybe not even that much detail, just enough detail to give us the ship in the shape. And then
it probably doesn't help that now everything's in HD and you can really. And I want to talk about the technical, because we watched all these episodes. Everything. Let's see. When we watched Deep Space Nine, it was a solid. It was upscale. It looked like they cleaned it up. Now it's coming out when you watch it on something, it's however you watch it, it's in 1080p, and then it's upscaled. It's 1080p when it comes out of whatever it is you're watching, whatever streaming device. But the tape.
Well, I'll tell you what I did notice though in the Far Beyond the Stars and 1159, they did up the bit rate again because it looks a lot sharper now.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's it looks less compressed. It looks.
But
better.
even on Netflix too, it must be something they're doing with streaming now.
I will say this though. This episode was so crisp and so clear and so sharp.
Right, it's the HD.
It was HD. I watched it on CBS All Access, It was even in Dolby Digital 5.1. So it's whatever those masters for the Blu-rays are. It was so crisp and clear, like you could see the noise, and like there was some color noise, like it was like the film stock that they used. It was like so kind of grainy and noisy, but it was just because of that was what they used. Whatever it was, it looked almost too clear. Like it was just like you could see, like, whereas when you used to watch it in the old days, you'd watch it on like a 19-inch worn out TV, and everything was done in standard def. And
it was done for the standard def, and you're not going to believe this.
Wow.
I forgot to hit the other recorder, so I lost all my dialogue. We only heard your part of it. I think we're gonna have to start over. Hang on.
Fuck you!
This is the captain of the Enterprise. Ship.
Podcasting, the final frontier. These are the ridiculous introductions I am forced to read at gunpoint, or should I say phaser point. Welcome to Ship, yet another in the long line of tedious Star Trek podcasts. This show is hosted by David Lawler and David B. Anderson. The two Davids will take you on a journey through time and space every 3 or 4 weeks, boldly podcasting where no podcast has gone before. Seriously? This is what you're making me read? Take it away, boys.
Welcome to the final episode of the season for Ship to Ship, a Star Trek podcast. Tonight we're finishing up our Tonight we're finishing up our season-long story arc. Pay attention to Star Trek Discovery. This is how you produce a series. The subject is time travel. Did you know that they have miniature cows in Texas?
What are we doing?
Cause and Effect season 5.
What? No. We did that one already. I could have sworn we did that already.
Maybe.
Don't you? I could swear we did this episode already. I know we did this episode. It's just like Crusher in the episode when she says, "I know I've given you this examination before." This is actually a really. I enjoyed this episode, even though it gets to be a bit tedious when you're watching it over and over again, because you know how it ends and you know how every scene ending, every chapter in this episode ends with the ship blowing up.
Also, we know they're not going to die. We know they're going to resolve this at some point.
It's really actually, and I don't know if I mentioned it or because I could have sworn we talked about this already, but we talked about Groundhog Day at some point. But this episode actually came out before Groundhog Day was released. This episode came out in 92, and Groundhog Day came out in 93. And there was another movie that was very similar to this idea called 1201. And it was directed by Jack Shoulder, and it starred Jonathan Silverman, Martin Landau, people like that. And it's about a guy who keeps repeating things over and over again. And then later, we would get, in 1999, we would get the X-Files episode Monday, which also ends with a bank being blown up by a crazy guy with a bomb. And Mulder is starting to get indications that this keeps happening over and over again.
Well, don't forget the classic film, The Butterfly Effect.
The Butterfly Effect, which came out when? When did that come out? I forget.
2006 or something, 2004. With Eric Stoltz playing an extremely creepy dude.
Who directed The Butterfly Effect? That was somebody who was like a screenwriter in Hollywood.
James Wong or something, or God.
Let me check The Butterfly.
You know, it may have been an X-Files director. I'm thinking like
2000. No, it's not who I thought it was going to be. It was somebody else. It was Eric Bress and J. Mackey Gruber, Ashton Kutcher, Amy Smart, Laura Walters, Eldon Henson. Star Trek Discovery would do what in my opinion, is their best episode. It was called Magic to Make the Sanest Man Mad. And it's a Harry Mudd episode where they keep reliving the same 30 minutes over and over again. And that is probably my favorite Star Trek Discovery episode.
Yeah, I want to say this about this episode. The only thing I remember is the ending. Because all the other stuff it's so bland. Like this is my least favorite of all the ones we reviewed, because we reviewed a chunk of these. This is my least favorite because
but
I remembered it being better.
And what about in 92 when you saw it? I mean, they show the ship blowing up in the beginning, and then we go right back like nothing happened. I'm like watching this going, I remember my mindset when I was watching an episode was like, what is going on here? Why do they keep exploding the ship and then coming back? And it's the same succession of scenes until there are variations. Like we start off.
So I got it confused in my head with there was this other one where he was with Worf. and he kept
Right? Yeah, I know what you're talking
multiple
about.
Worfs in sort of the universe. I somehow got that confused in my head.
It
It's
was
like,
called Parallels. It was from season 7. That's a really good episode. That's like alternate universes, though. That's not time
when
travel.
He was
That's
married.
alternate.
Are we married?
We're married. He's married to Troy.
Yeah.
Data has blue eyes. His birthday cake is a chocolate cake at first. It becomes a yellow cake later. There are some funny bits in there too. Like Picard is eating cake, and he says, "So how old are you?" He just wants to know how old Worf is.
Mm-hmm.
And Geordi dies, and a bunch of other things happen. And then there's a whole bunch of alternate universes. There's Wesley is still on the ship. Riker has a lumberjack beard talking about the Borg are everywhere. You know, we don't want to go back. But this one, we start off with a poker game. Crusher wins, and I don't understand how, because Riker's like the poker genius. And then Geordi shows up. He's got a problem with his visor. He's getting weird after images. Then we cut to Crusher later in the quarters before she goes to bed. She's pruning some branches. And then she hears voices. She hears a lot of weird scattered voices everywhere.
Yeah, there was another one that I was like, is this the one where she starts to, like, she does the ghost? And I'm like, no, this isn't the one she does the ghost.
No, it's not the one where oh my God. Yeah, Frakes directed that episode too. Jonathan Frakes directs this episode as well. Later on, she's talking about, did anybody hear strange voices last night? They decide they're going to check it out. But then suddenly something is happening, and there's a weird effect going on outside. They go to the bridge, and then suddenly a ship appears out of nowhere, grazes them across their nacelle, causes them to spin out of control. Riker has this idea to decompress the main shuttle bay, but Data has a better idea, but it doesn't work. Data has an idea that doesn't work, and the ship blows up. And then we're right back where we started. Dave, I'm sorry, but I don't think I was recording this. I lost all my dialogue again. I'm sorry. We're gonna have to do this again. Do you have a problem with that? I just want to.
Fuck you!
This is the captain of the Enterprise. Ship.
Podcasting, the final frontier. These are the ridiculous introductions I am forced to read at gunpoint. Or should I say, phaser point. Welcome to Ship, yet another in the long line of tedious Star Trek podcasts. This show is hosted by David Lawler and David B. Anderson. The two Davids will take you on a journey through time and space every 3 or 4 weeks, boldly podcasting where no podcast has gone before. Seriously? This is what you're making me read? Take it away, boys.
Welcome to the season finale of Ship, a Star Trek podcast. Tonight we're finishing up our season-long story arc. Pay attention, Santa Clarita Diet. This is how you produce a series. The subject is time travel. Did you know they have miniature cows in Texas?
What episode are we doing?
I think we're doing Cause and Effect, season 5.
I could have sworn we did that already.
Really? You know what? Now that you mention it, I think we might have. I'm gonna have to take a look at the. I'm gonna have to take a look at our production logs and see if we. No, I don't see it here. This is part of the whole time travel. This is the end of the whole thing where we were talking about time travel episodes, and this is Star Trek Next Generation, and I don't know why. Did we have a conversation before about how you didn't really like this? Like it. I feel like you said something along the lines that it's not how you remembered it. Like you liked it better when it first premiered.
Yeah, I remembered it was good because of the way that it ends. Can we spoil the ending now, or do we wait until the end, wherever the hell we get to the end of this? God damn you.
Well, the ending is basically, I think, you have Fraser. Dr. Fraser Crane is the captain of the USS Bozeman. What is the USS Bozeman named after?
Bozeman, Montana?
Yes.
First Contact?
Yeah, and actually, according to the chronology, because I was looking at Memory Alpha, this ship was launched before the events of the Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, it looked like the Reliant, but it had like a cannon thing on it. They probably took the old model and then like repurposed it.
Repurposed this. I always thought it was a fun episode. It reminded me of, there was a line in The Simpsons where they talked about Milhouse talks about a comic book of Radioactive Man, where Radioactive Man gets killed on every page. It was like a limited edition comic book, even though it doesn't really make any sense to kill off the lead character every page. But in this episode, every time an act ends, the ship blows up. It's and we get this succession of scenes. We're starting off with a poker game, where Worf, Data, Crusher, and Riker are all playing poker. And then as we move along, Crusher knows what the hand is going to be. And then we move even further on, and everybody knows what the next hand is going to be. And Data has this is Brent Spiner doing what he does best when he plays Data. He has this look on his face like he cannot process what is happening. He goes, "This is highly improbable," and he's kind of suspicious. And so they eventually, once we get to the third act of this, they start to figure out, hey, wait a minute. This is some deja vu stuff. I'm hearing voices. I record the voices. Data processes the voices, and he figures out that there are over 1,000 people talking all within this space of time, right? And they're us. They're the crew of the Enterprise.
Would you say that like this is like the human element, or would you say that this is like somehow their humanity is able to sort of see through this, or there's like a more mathematical reason that they can give this information to Data, and Data can process it?
Well, I think that when they come to the ultimate conclusion that they're repeating time over and over again, because Worf says something about a Mobius strip, you know, how there's a twist in time where time becomes a loop, and they keep doing this over and over again, right?
Yeah.
They come up with the idea to send a message into the next loop, right? The next iteration. So they use Data to do it, and they use the code 3, which is... You know, I guess that's all they could manage, because when Data finally figures out, hey, wait a minute, my idea sucks. It was Riker's idea. Is probably the better idea. I'll program myself and I'll remember the number 3. And then he starts putting the number 3 everywhere in everything, right? He's dealing cards, and they all come out 3 of a kind, 3 of a kind, 3 3s. He types in a bunch of stuff on a panel, and the number 3 keeps popping up. So he's sending this. It's like a subconscious, it's like a hypnotic thing.
See, if I was Data, I would think that I was malfunctioning.
There's
something like I'm perceiving 3s. There's something wrong with my brain.
If you want to be an actually kind of guy, yeah, you could say that. I would think there was something wrong, and Data was like, there's something wrong with my brain. I'm shutting myself down so I can do a I don't know, what do they call it again? A diagnostic.
Diagnostic.
Yes, but thankfully they go along with this whole idea. So you have this iteration over and over again. What eventually happens? Okay, they go through the whole thing. Crusher hears the voices again. They're in the observation room talking about it at the conference table, and then they run into this problem again. The ship comes out of nowhere. Data suddenly gets it into his head. Wait a minute. We should decompress the main shuttle bay. So he does. That pushes the Enterprise out of the way. The Bozeman comes out. Eventually the power is restored again, and everything's fine, right? And they're trying to figure out what the hell happened. And then they figured out that they sent the message to Data. And they've been doing this for how many days? 17 days?
I guess.
They've been doing this same thing over and over again for 17 days because they were caught in this Mobius strip. This is one of the things, what I like about the episode is that there's no explanation given. It just sort of happened, right?
Yeah, they didn't have some sort of thing where... But well, they do kind of explain it. Like he says that like we were exploring some sort of anomaly or something, doesn't he say? Like when he comes up. First of all, when he comes up, now remember this. When was this on? 92? You said.
Mm-hmm. 92. Yeah.
This would have been right as Cheers was ending. So he was not the star of his own show, of a very popular show. He was like a fourth lead on a popular show at the time. So,
well, he was already becoming one of the higher paid people. It's interesting, actually. They wanted to have Kirstie Alley playing his first officer.
Oh, well, that would have confused people because.
They were thinking maybe it could be Savick.
Ooh,
I don't know.
Well, then that would have been interesting.
It would have been interesting. Unfortunately, they couldn't get. I don't know. Maybe they didn't have contract whatever it was. And Kelsey Grammer was a big fan of Star Trek because he used to come over to the set because they were right next door to each other. Mm-hmm. Cheers and Next Generation were neighbors.
It felt very sort of stunt casting, much sort of like the Christian Slater in Star Trek 6. It felt like that. It felt like just stunt casting, like, hey, you want to come on? And
they did. I mean, they did it before. They had Lilith on the show. She played an alien who has sex with Riker.
Well, yeah, but that's a little different because again, she's an alien, and it's like, she's not. For some reason, Frasier being on it seemed a little. Although again, I was just thinking like it's a Paramount show. It was on the Paramount lot. They had
an unusual relationship, Cheers and Next Generation, because not only were they next door to each other, but Denise Crosby says in her in the William Shatner documentary that they had no money for catering. They had no food, so they would go periodically. They would go sneak into the Cheers set and steal food from their craft services table. And then on top of that. Brent Spiner made an appearance in the seventh season of, or the 5th season of Cheers, because he happened to be on the lot that day and they needed an actor for for a 2-parter they were doing on Cheers. So they got Brent Spiner in between makeup sessions when they were shooting the pilot for Encounter at Farpoint. So they got him on the show.
He didn't play the same character as he did on Night Court. He didn't play that.
No. He played a guy who was accused of trying to murder his wife. And Diane, Shelley Long, was the foreman of the jury. And then they show up later in the second part of the episode.
He was on Cheers in early 87 as they were gearing up.
They were working on the pilot.
They were working on the pilot. He wouldn't have been known as Data at all. In fact, he probably would have been more well.
No. He would
have been known as the Bumpkin.
Nobody knew anything about it. It was in strict secrecy.
Oh, okay.
So they had already.
That wouldn't have been stunt. Now this was stunt casting with Kelsey Grammer. Although I gotta say,
did you see that meme that said that Cheers was just a holodeck program on Next Generation, and it showed all the actors that were involved? Like Kate Mulgrew was on the show. She was in a 2-parter at the end of the 4th season. Mm-hmm. So it was like they took all these pictures of all these actors who were on Star Trek. Including Ted Danson, who was on the Orville. Wasn't really on Star Trek, but he was on the Orville because they considered the Orville to be.
Are you saying did George Wendt show up on Next Gen at any time?
I don't know. I do know that Morn, the character of Morn, was based on Norm. He's just a big alien who sits in Quark's bar, so they call him Morn, as an anagram for Norm. When we finally we get the reveal of Kelsey and his first officer there, and he just has a very quick beard. Yeah, this is the final season of Cheers, I believe, is around the time that this was shot, right? This episode.
Last season of Cheers was 93.
Right, 92, 93, right?
92, 93, and this was an early 92?
Well, no, this was toward,
92?
Yeah, it was early 92.
Yeah, so it would have been, around as they were finishing up Cheers, yeah.
So there you have it. That's the episode in a nutshell. I did want to talk a little bit about the technical aspects of it. I'm pretty sure that this was a cost-cutting episode because the budget could be kept really low. The Frakes used 2 cameras for scenes with dialogue so that he could have different angles. Because Rick Berman told him he didn't want any shot to be exactly duplicated. He wanted there to be variations in what people were saying. So all you do is you do what you do, and the script could have been like 30 pages long or even 20 pages long and just replicating things until you get to different variations of what they're doing. So it saves money because he can just use different takes, and you save money with the obvious AMT Enterprise models that they were using. But I thought it was really clever. What did you think?
I think maybe it was because it was the last one I watched. Maybe it was because the picture was kind of grainy and looked a little strange. Maybe it was just because I didn't feel like it was a particularly good episode, and I was like, the only good thing that I remembered from it was Kelsey showing up, and that's like surprise. So I'm gonna say that it didn't suck, but I was like, it felt I felt meh.
I was delighted when I saw Fraser. I was like, oh my God, it's Fraser.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like on the show.
It's like you remember the one good thing in the episode and the rest of it, and you're watching like, ugh. At least in my case, it was.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for Ship to Ship. And I didn't have any problems with the recorder this time. How about that?
Thank you.
Sorry. But I don't know when we'll be back. But I do know that when we come back, I do want to get into the Mirror Universe, which means we're going to talk about all the Mirror Universe stuff, all the episodes. The original series, the first episode, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's also Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
Had several episodes that took place in the Mirror Universe. And then there was Enterprise, had a very nice 2-parter that took place.
Next Gen.
Next Gen never had a Mirror Universe episode.
Well, no, wait a minute now. Because it was the one where it's the alternate universe. I don't know if it counts as the Mirror Universe, but it's the one that kind of created... brought Denise Crosby back, because remember there was like
you're talking about yesterday's Enterprise, but that was still Starfleet and the Federation.
It wasn't okay.
That was just an alternate universe, but if you want to, we can do that too.
Well, I don't know if I want to do that, but I'm just saying.
And also, we have to talk about the Star Trek Discovery and the story arc they did for the second half of their first season, where they were in the Mirror Universe too.
Yeah, I felt like that was a major part of it, was doing Mirror Universe stuff.
Right, but until then, we're going to be working on James Bond. So there's going to be a lot of James Bond over at Blissville.
Yeah.
And we'll be taking a break from all this. By the way, David, do you know what year this is?
It's 2020.
Dave, I think you need to beam over. There's some things we have to discuss.
Fuck you!
Good night.
Good night! Wow.
I forgot to hit the other recorder, so I lost all my dialogue. We only heard your part of it. I think we're gonna have to start over. Hang on.
Fuck you!